The sound of breaking furniture echoed through the corridor of Academy, stopped walking and listened. She had heard fighting before many times in her 32 years of life, but this sound was different. This was the sound of creatures destroying themselves. She found them in their quarters, 3 young cubs, their golden fur matted with sweat and small cuts. Taro had pinned against the wall. Myra crouched in the corner, her small body shaking with anger or fear or both. "This is your fault," Taro snarled at his brother. His claws were out. "You froze again, you always freeze. The whole station laughs at us because of you." Said nothing. He was the eldest of the 3, bigger than Taro, but his eyes were empty. He had stopped fighting back long ago. Stepped into the room. The cubs turned to look at her. She was small by human standards, with short black hair and calm eyes that seemed to look through things rather than at them. She wore the simple gray uniform of an academy instructor. "Get out," Taro growled. "This is business." Did not get out. She walked to the center of the destroyed room, pushed aside a broken chair, and sat down on the floor, cross-legged, relaxed, as if she had all the time in the universe. "I said get out, human." Taro released and stepped toward her. His teeth were sharp and yellow. His ancestors had hunted across 3-star systems. His grandfather had commanded fleets that made empires tremble. "What can your kind teach us? You crawled from mud while we built kingdoms." Looked at him. She did not blink. She did not move. "Your grandfather was General Taro of the 5th Fleet," she said quietly. "He lost the Battle of Crimson Nebula. 17,000 died under his command. Your family lost everything: lands, titles, honor." Taro's paw stopped inches from her face. His whole body went still. "How do you know that?" he whispered. "I read your file," turned to look at, who had slid down the wall and sat on the floor. "Your father was a diplomat. He signed the Treaty of Submission that ended the Empire. He killed himself 1 year later. You were 7 years old." Closed his eyes. A sound came from his throat, soft and broken. Finally looked at Myra in the corner, the smallest cub, the runt of her litter, as they called it. "You were supposed to be given away at birth. Your mother refused. She said you would prove everyone wrong, but you haven't, not yet. And every day you wonder if she made a mistake keeping you." Myra's golden eyes filled with tears. She did not speak. The room was silent. Somewhere in the station a bell rang. Classes were changing. Life went on. But in this small room, 3 broken cubs sat with a human woman who had just torn open their deepest wounds. "Why?" Taro finally asked. His voice had lost its anger. Now he just sounded tired. "Why would you say these things?" Stood up slowly. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "Because I am your new instructor," she said. "Because I need you to understand something important. You are not failing because you are weak. You are not failing because the other species are better. You are failing because you carry your shame like chains, and chains make it very hard to climb." She turned back to face them. "I have read your assessment files, all of them. The combat simulations, the zero-gravity trials, the leadership tests. Do you know what I found?" None of them answered. "I found 3 cubs who could be exceptional. Taro, your reflexes are in the top 5% of all cadets. Your tactical analysis scores are remarkable when you have time to think. Myra, you move through zero-gravity better than cadets twice your size." She paused. "But none of that matters because you spend all your energy fighting yourselves and each other." Taro laughed bitterly. "Pretty words. Our last 3 instructors said similar things. Then they quit, just like everyone quits on us." "I will not quit." "They all say that." Reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal object. It was old and worn, shaped like a flower with 5 petals. She held it up so they could see. "Do you know what this is?" The cubs shook their heads. "It is an honor medal, given to pilots who show exceptional bravery." She turned it over in her fingers. "It belonged to Commander. He died 20 years ago pulling survivors from a crashed colony ship." Myra leaned forward slightly. "How do you have it?" "Because I was on that ship." His voice remained calm, but something flickered in her eyes. "I was 12 years old. My parents died in the crash. Commander flew into the wreckage 3 times. The 3rd time his ship exploded, but he had already put me in an escape pod. He saved 37 children that day. I was one of them." She put the medal back in her pocket. Saved my life. Your people, your ancestors, they were not just conquerors. They were protectors. They lifted others up. They earned their crowns not by standing on top of others, but by helping others stand." Taro looked away, stared at the floor. Myra wiped her eyes with the back of her paw. I did not ask for this assignment, continued. I requested it. I chose you three, because I have seen your files and I have seen your footage, and I know that you are not failures. You are seeds that have not yet found good soil. She walked to the door and stopped. Tomorrow morning we begin. We will not start with combat or tactics or simulations. We will start at the beginning, the very beginning. And you will not come to me as lions or as heirs of empires or as the last hope of your species. She looked back at them one final time. You will come to me as students, empty and ready to learn, because empires fall and pride breaks, but I have never seen a species that could not climb back up, unless they refused to learn how. She left, the door closed behind her. The three cubs sat in their destroyed room. They did not speak. They did not fight. For the first time in many months, they simply sat together in silence. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant, but somewhere among them there was a path upward, a way to climb. Tomorrow they would take the first step. The first week made no sense to anyone. Did not take the cubs to the combat halls. She did not put them in flight simulators. She did not drill them with weapons or tactics or any of the things the academy was famous for. Instead, she made sit in a dark room and breathe. This is stupid, he said on the first day. I should be training. You are training, replied. You freeze under pressure because your mind moves too fast. It sees all the ways things can go wrong, so we must teach your mind to be still. Breathing will not make me a better soldier. You are not here to become a soldier. You are here to become yourself. Now breathe. Breathed for hours, for days. He hated every moment of it. But slowly, so slowly that he did not notice at first, the storm inside his head began to quiet. Taro's training was different. Assigned him to work with the maintenance drones in the station's lower levels, cleaning filters, fixing pipes, carrying heavy equipment. This is punishment, Taro growled. You are trying to humiliate me. The drones cannot do everything alone, said. Sometimes they need help, ask them. I do not ask machines for help. Then you will carry the equipment alone. It weighs 200 kilograms, good luck. Taro tried to carry it alone. He failed. His muscles burned. His pride screamed. But the drone waited patiently beside him, its mechanical arms ready to assist. Finally, after 3 hours of struggling, Taro looked at the drone and said the hardest words he had ever spoken. Can you help me? The drone beeped happily and lifted the other end of the equipment. Together, they carried it easily. Watched from the doorway, she said nothing, but she smiled. Myra's training was strangest of all. Paired her with the largest cadets in the academy, a warrior who stood 3 meters tall, a rock creature whose body was made of living stone. Fight them, Myra said hopefully. You want me to learn to fight bigger enemies. No, I want you to watch them, follow them for 1 week, see how they move, see how they think, do not speak to them, just observe. What will that teach me? Everything. So Myra followed the giants. She watched the warrior eat breakfast. She watched the practice combat forms. She saw how the big creatures moved through spaces, how they turned corners, how they checked their surroundings. And she began to see something interesting. The giants were slow. They could not move quickly because their size made them careful. They had blind spots, places their eyes could not reach. They made noise when they walked. Myra was small. She could go where they could not, see what they missed, move in silence while they thundered. Her weakness was also her strength. She had simply never known how to use it. At the end of the second week, gathered all 3 cubs in a training room. They looked different now. His eyes were clearer. Taro's shoulders had relaxed. Myra moved with a new kind of confidence. You are confused, said. You wonder why I have not trained you like other instructors. They nodded, sat down and gestured for them to join her. They formed a small circle on the training room floor. When I was 12 years old, my colony ship crashed on an ice moon. The adults died within days. Cold, injuries, sickness. Only the children survived. Taro leaned forward. How children cannot survive alone. We survived because we learned to fail. His voice was steady, but her eyes looked far away, seeing memories from long ago. We fell into snow holes 100 times before we learned which ice was safe to walk on. We ate wrong plants and got sick before we found the ones that would not poison us. We built shelters that collapsed in the night again and again until we built ones that stood. She looked at each of them in turn. Failure is not shame. Failure is information. Every time you fall, you learn something new about the ground. Every time you break, you learn something new about yourself. Your ancestors did not build an empire because they never lost battles. They built an empire because they learned from every defeat. Spoke quietly, but we have failed so many times, the whole station thinks we are jokes. What the station thinks does not matter. What you think of yourselves matters, and I have watched you these 2 weeks. You are not the same cubs I met in that destroyed room. You are changing, growing, learning to fall without breaking. She stood and walked to the wall. A panel slid open, revealing a window into a massive chamber filled with floating platforms, spinning obstacles, and shifting gravity fields. The famous gravity maze of Academy. Many cadets entered it. Few completed it. Today, you enter the maze, not to finish first, not to beat any record, you enter to practice falling. Myra's tail twitched nervously. What if we fail? You will fail many times, that is the point. Open the door to the maze. Now go and remember the fall is not the end. The end is when you stop getting up. They entered the maze. It was chaos. Gravity shifted every few seconds. Platforms appeared and disappeared. Taro fell immediately, spinning in zero gravity, cursing. Grabbed a platform, but his mind started racing, showing him all the ways he could fail, and he froze. Myra made it furthest, darting between obstacles, but then a spinning wall caught her and sent her tumbling into the safety net. They tried again, and again, and again. Taro learned to control his anger, to use his reflexes instead of his rage. Learned to trust his first instinct, to move before his thoughts could paralyze him. Myra learned that her small size was an advantage in the tight spaces between obstacles. Hours passed. They failed 100 times, 200, but each failure was different from the last. Each fall taught them something new. Near the end of the day, Myra reached the halfway point of the maze. Then panic hit her. The platforms around her started moving faster. The gravity shifted wildly. Her body locked up. She could not move. She could not breathe. His voice came through the communication system, soft and calm. Myra, what do you see? I cannot move, Myra gasped. I am going to fall. What do you see? Myra forced herself to look, really look. A platform 2 meters to my left and a handhold above me. What can you reach? The handhold, maybe. What is the smallest move you can make? Myra thought the smallest move, not the whole maze, not the finish line, just one small move. She reached up, her paw touched the handhold. She pulled herself forward, then she looked again, found the next small move, and the next. She finished the maze last, long after her brothers had given up for the day, but she finished. Was waiting at the exit. She said nothing. She simply placed a paw on Myra's shoulder and nodded. That night the cubs sat together in their quarters. The room was still broken from their fight, but they had cleared a space in the center. The Academy just announced something, said, looking at his data pad. The Triennial Gauntlet, the biggest competition in the station. Every species sends their best team. Taro laughed bitterly. They have not placed in the top 10 for 40 years. Why would this year be different? Myra looked at her brothers, then at the door where it stood weeks ago and told them they could climb. Maybe, she said quietly, this year we have a real teacher. The next morning they found in the training room. She was studying data about the gauntlet, her face serious. We want to enter, Taro said, the 3 of us as a team. Looked at them for a long moment, then she nodded. Good, now we have a goal, and a lot of work to do. The climb had truly begun. The weeks before the gauntlet were the hardest of their lives. Pushed them now, but in ways that felt different from before. She made them run obstacle courses, yes. She drilled them in combat simulations. She tested their reflexes and their tactics and their strength, but always she made them work together. Taro cover Myra's approach, call out the enemy positions, Myra find the gap and strike. Again and again they practiced. In the beginning, they stumbled over each other. Taro moved too fast and left his siblings behind, overthought every command and gave orders too late. Myra tried to do everything alone because she did not trust anyone to help her. But slowly they learned. Taro discovered that his aggression could become protection. When enemies targeted Myra, his fury had purpose. He was not just fighting, he was defending. Found that when he trusted his first thought, his mind became an advantage instead of a trap. He could see patterns that others missed. Myra learned that being small meant she could go places her brothers could not reach, but she had to let them clear the path first. They became a unit, not three individuals fighting separately, but one team breathing together. Watched them sometimes from the observation deck. He was a human cadet, a young man with messy hair and a friendly smile. He had been assigned as assistant for the training period, though mostly he just brought them water and food. "They are getting better," he said to one evening. "Really better. I have seen many teams train, but never like this." Nodded, but her eyes were troubled. The gauntlet is not just about skill. It will test who they are inside. Their spirits must be as strong as their bodies. "You worry about them." "I worry about what happens when the past catches up to them." The past caught up 3 days later. Elder arrived at the station without warning. He was old, his golden fur streaked with gray, his eyes hard as stone. He was the ambassador to the Galactic Union, and he had not spoken to the Cubs since they arrived at the academy. He found them in the training hall, covered in sweat, laughing at something Taro had said. When they saw him, the laughter died. "Leave us," said Tuend. "This is a matter." Did not move. "I am their instructor, I stay." Sighs narrowed. "You are a human, you have no authority here." "I have the authority given to me by this academy, and I will not leave my students." For a moment the air crackled with tension, then turned his back on as if she did not exist. He faced the three Cubs. "I have watched the reports of your training," he said coldly. "I see you running through obstacle courses, playing games in simulators, learning to work together like pack animals." He spat the last words. "Your ancestors would weep with shame." Stepped forward. "Elder, we have improved, our scores are higher than ever. Instructor has taught us." "Taught you what? To beg for help like weaklings, to work together because you cannot stand alone," shook his head. "The ruled 3 systems. We did not rule because we asked permission. We ruled because we were stronger than everyone else." Taro's paws had curled into fists. "The Empire is gone, Elder. We have to find a new way." "The Empire is gone because we forgot what made us great," pointed at without looking at her. "And now you take lessons from a human, a species that was still playing in mud when we built starships. You shame every who ever lived." Myra spoke, her voice small but steady. "Commander he saved Instructor's life. He saved 37 human children. Was he shameful too?" Went still, something flickered in his hard eyes. Pain, perhaps, or anger. "Was a fool who died for creatures that were not worth saving. His sacrifice meant nothing. The humans forgot him within a year. They always forget." He looked at each of the Cubs in turn. "You will fail at the gauntlet. Everyone knows it. And when you fail, you will prove that they are finished. A dead species walking." He left without another word. The training hall was silent. Taro punched the wall, leaving a dent in the metal, sat down heavily on the floor. Myra stared at the door where it had disappeared. Walked to the center of the room. She sat down and waited. Slowly, the Cubs gathered around her. They looked broken again, the way they had looked the first day she met them. "He is right," Taro said bitterly. "We are a joke. No matter how hard we train, everyone still sees us as failures. What is the point?" Pulled out the honor medal from her pocket. Commander's medal. She held it in the palm of her hand. "Elder said something true," she said. "Humans do forget quickly. We live short lives. Our memories are brief." She looked at the medal. "I forgot Commander's name for 15 years. I remembered his face, his voice, the way he smiled when he put me in the escape pod, but I forgot his name." The Cubs watched her. "Then 5 years ago, I visited the memorial for fallen pilots. I found his name on a wall with 10,000 others, and I stood there for 3 hours, saying his name over and over, making sure I would never forget again." She put the medal away. "Did not save me because he wanted glory or remembrance. He saved me because that is what his people were supposed to do. Your ancestors were not great because they conquered. They were great because they protected, because they lifted others up. That is what made them kings." Shook his head. "That is not what the histories say. The histories say we ruled through strength." "The histories were written by those who came after the fall. They remembered the battles and forgot the kindness." Stood and walked to a wall panel. She pressed some buttons and images appeared on the screen. Old images, ancient recordings from the height of the Empire. A ship carrying refugees from a dying world. A commander teaching navigation to primitive species who had never seen the stars. A healer working in a hospital on a planet that was not her own. A soldier carrying a wounded alien child through a battlefield. These images are from the Imperial Archives, said. They were hidden after the fall because they did not match the story the survivors wanted to tell. The story of strength and conquest. But this is the truth. Your ancestors built an empire not by standing on others, but by helping others stand. Myra's eyes were wet. Why did they forget? Because forgetting was easier than facing what they had lost. When the empire fell, they had to believe it was because they became weak. The truth was harder. They fell because they stopped helping. They started taking instead of giving. They forgot that crowns are heavy, and kings who wear them must earn them every day. Taro looked at the images. His grandfather's shame, his family's fall, suddenly they seemed smaller, part of a larger story that he had never understood. Can we really change what everyone thinks of us? He asked. Turned off the screen. She walked back to them and knelt so she was at their eye level. I do not know, but I know this. You do not climb for other people's opinions. You climb because climbing is what you are meant to do. Whether anyone watches or not, whether anyone remembers or not, you climb because that is how you become who you are supposed to be. She stood. The gauntlet begins tomorrow. You will face teams that are bigger, stronger, faster, teams with better equipment and longer training, teams that everyone expects to win. She smiled. But they do not have what you have. What do we have? Myra asked. Each other, and a reason to climb that is bigger than victory. That night the cubs did not sleep. They sat together in their quarters, talking about the images they had seen. Talking about their ancestors, the real ones, not the warriors of legend, but the helpers and protectors and teachers. When dawn came, they were ready. Not to win, not to prove the doubters wrong, but to climb, to become something their ancestors would recognize. To become kings in the way that mattered, 60 teams gathered in the launch bay of Academy. The air was thick with tension and pride. Warriors stood in perfect rows, their scales gleaming under the lights. Rock creatures rumbled with quiet confidence. Swimmers floated in their water suits, ready for any environment. Human teams checked their equipment with careful efficiency. And in the corner, 3 cubs stood together. Golden fur brushed and clean, eyes clear and focused. They did not look like the broken creatures who had destroyed their room 3 months ago. They looked like something new. Watched them from the observation deck, stood beside her. Are they ready? He asked. No one is ever ready for the gauntlet, replied, but they are ready to try. The director of the academy stepped to the podium. She was an old, her voice deep and powerful. The triennial gauntlet tests everything: survival, combat, leadership. But most importantly, it tests who you are when everything goes wrong. Many of you will fail. Some of you will want to quit. The mountain does not care about your feelings. The ice does not care about your pride. Only those who truly deserve to reach the top will reach it. She paused and looked across the gathered teams. The gauntlet has 3 stages. Only teams that complete each stage will move to the next. Good luck to all of you. Stage 1 was a desert moon called. The transport ships dropped the teams at different points across the burning landscape. Each team had limited water, limited food, and 72 hours to reach the extraction point. The sun was a white fire in the sky. The sand shifted like liquid. The air itself seemed to want them dead. Many teams ran. They were eager to finish first to prove their strength. They burned through their water in the first day. They fought over supplies when they met other teams. They left their weaker members behind when they could not keep up. The cubs walked. Slow and steady, said, checking their map. We move at night when it is cooler. We rest in the shade during the day. We share everything equally. Taro wanted to argue. His instincts screamed at him to run, to fight, to prove himself. But he remembered lessons. He remembered the drone in the maintenance level. He remembered that strength sometimes meant asking for help instead of doing everything alone. Okay, he said, we trust you. Myra found water sources that the other teams missed. Her small size let her crawl into cracks in the rocks where moisture gathered. She found caves where they could escape the burning sun. She saw footprints in the sand and warned them when other teams were nearby. On the second day, they found a team from the Alliance collapsed in the sand. 3 rock creatures, their bodies cracking from the heat and lack of water. We should keep moving, Taro said. They are our competition. Myra looked at him. Is that what Commander would have done? Taro closed his eyes. He thought about the images had shown them. The helping strangers, the empire built on protection, not conquest. No, he said finally, it is not. They shared their water with They helped them reach the shade and showed them where to find moisture. It cost them time. It cost them resources. But when they finally had the strength to stand, they looked at the cubs with something like wonder. Why? Asked their leader, his voice rough. We are enemies in this competition. Shook his head. No, we are cadets, all of us, and cadets help each other. The cubs reached the extraction point in the middle of the pack. Not first, not last. Many teams had already finished. Many more had given up or been pulled out for medical reasons. They had survived. Stage 2 was a space combat simulation. Each team controlled a small warship in a virtual battlefield. The goal was to destroy enemy ships and capture objectives. Simple in theory, impossible in practice. The simulation was designed to be chaotic and unfair. Ships were damaged randomly. Communications failed. Nothing worked the way it was supposed to. Taro took weapons control. His reflexes were sharp, his aim true. But in the first battle, he fired at every target he saw, wasting ammunition and energy. They lost badly. I know what I did wrong, Taro said afterward, his head low. I was fighting like I was alone, like I had to do everything myself. Then trust us, Myra said. You shoot, tells you where, I will get us into position. They tried again and again. Slowly they found their rhythm, analyzed the enemy patterns and called out targets in order of importance. Myra flew the ship through impossible gaps, putting them exactly where Taro needed to be. Taro waited for the right moment instead of firing wildly. In the final battle, they faced the favorites, a team that had never lost a simulation in 3 years. Everyone expected the to fall in minutes. The battle lasted 2 hours. The Cubs did not try to match the in direct combat. They would have lost. Instead, they moved like water flowing around the bigger ship, striking from angles they did not expect. Myra flew through debris fields that should have been impassable, predicted the enemy movements before they happened. Taro hit weak points that they had thought were protected. When the flagship finally exploded, the observation room went silent. Then someone started clapping, more joined. Soon the whole room was cheering. They had made the top 20. Nobody had expected that. Stage 3 was the final test, a real mountain on a real ice world called Terminus. The rules were simple. Climb to the summit, plant your team's flag. Only one team could claim the peak. Everything else was permitted. 20 teams stood at the base of the mountain. The wind was a frozen knife. The ice was treacherous. The summit was invisible behind clouds of snow. This is it, said, his breath forming crystals in the cold air. Everything we have trained for. Taro looked up at the mountain. It was so tall, so cold, so impossible. But he was not afraid, not anymore. We climb together, he said. No matter what happens, we stay together. Myra pressed her small body against her brother's. Together. They began to climb. The first hours were hard but manageable. The teams spread out across the mountain, each choosing their own path. Some went fast and reckless, some were slow and careful. They took the middle path, steady and constant. Then the storm hit. It came without warning, a wall of white wind that swallowed the mountain. Teams that had climbed too high found themselves exposed and helpless. Teams that had spread out lost each other in the chaos. Screams filled the communication channels. Emergency beacons flashed as cadets called for rescue. The Cubs found shelter on a narrow ledge, pressing against the rock to escape the wind. Around them, the storm roared like a living thing. We have to wait, said, calculating in his head. If we try to climb in this, we will die. But they were not alone on the ledge. 2 other teams had found the same shelter. The favorites, battered but still strong, and a smaller team from the Alliance, their water suits struggling in the frozen air. For a long moment, everyone stared at each other. Enemies, competitors, rivals. Then the leader spoke. We must move. This ledge is not stable. If we wait here, the ice will break and we all fall. Moving is suicide, Taro growled. The storm is too strong. Staying is also suicide, so we choose how we want to die. They looked at the team. One of their members was injured, his leg broken from a fall. We cannot carry dead weight. This slows us all down. We leave them. No. Everyone turned to look at Myra. Her voice was small, but it carried over the wind. No, she said again, we do not leave anyone. The leader laughed. This is the gauntlet, little cub. There is only one summit, only one victory. Mercy is weakness. Stepped forward. Mercy is not weakness. Our ancestors knew that. They built an empire by helping others, not by abandoning them. Your ancestors are dead. Their empire is dust. Yes, because they forgot. Looked at his siblings, then at the other teams. But we remember now, and we will not forget again. Taro cracked his knuckles. Here is what is going to happen. We are all going to climb together. We are going to carry the injured. We are going to help each other. And we are going to reach the top together. Anyone who does not like this plan can fight me. They stared at him. Then slowly something changed in their leader's eyes. Not respect. Not yet, but something close to it. You are fools, he said. All of you. Maybe, Taro replied. But we are fools who will reach the summit. Are you coming or not? The storm screamed around them. The ice cracked beneath their feet. Death waited in every shadow. But on that narrow ledge, something strange began to happen. Former enemies became allies. Rivals became partners. And three cubs stood at the center of it all, holding everyone together with nothing but stubborn hope. They began to climb. Together, the mountain wanted them dead. Every step was a battle. The wind cut through their suits like frozen blades. The ice broke beneath their feet without warning. The storm had turned the world into a white wall of nothing, and they climbed through it like blind creatures searching for the sun. Taro carried the injured cadet on his back, the same whose team leader had been ready to abandon him. The weight was enormous. Every muscle in Taro's body screamed for him to stop, to drop the burden, to save himself. He kept climbing. Talk to me, Taro grunted. What is your name? The whispered, his voice weak from pain and cold. Why are you doing this? I am nothing to you. You are a cadet, that makes you something. Taro found his next foothold and pulled them both up. Besides, I made a promise to myself. No one gets left behind, not anymore. Ahead of them, Myra scouted the path. Her small body moved through spaces the others could not fit. She tested each piece of ice before the larger climbers put their weight on it. She found handholds that were invisible in the storm. Without her, they would have fallen a dozen times. Turn left here, she called back through the communication system. There is a gap in the wind. We can rest for a moment. They found the gap, a small pocket in the rock where the storm could not reach. The three teams huddled together, sharing body heat, checking their supplies. Studied his map and calculations. His mind was racing, but it was not the racing of fear. It was the racing of purpose. We are 2 hours from the summit, he said. But the storm is getting worse. If we wait for it to pass, we will run out of supplies. If we keep climbing, we risk everything. The leader looked at him. What do you suggest? Hesitated. Everyone was looking at him now. All these warriors and cadets waiting for it to tell them what to do. His grandfather had commanded fleets. His father had signed treaties. Now it was his turn to lead. We tie ourselves together, he said. If one falls, the others catch them. We move as one creature with many legs. We do not stop until we reach the top. That will slow us down. Yes, but it will keep us alive. They considered this, then he nodded. Very well, we do it your way, cub. They tied the ropes. 3 teams, 12 cadets connected by lines that turned them into a single organism. When one slipped, the others held firm. When one grew tired, the others pulled harder. The mountain threw everything at them, wind, ice, avalanches, and they kept climbing. Hours passed, time lost meaning. There was only the next step, the next breath, the next pull of the rope. Myra saw it first. The summit, she gasped. I can see it. Through a break in the clouds, they glimpsed it. A flat platform of rock at the very top of the mountain. The end of the climb, the goal they had all been fighting for. But now, looking at it, Taro felt something strange. He had expected to feel triumph, victory, pride. Instead, he felt empty. There can only be one flag, the leader said. Only one winner. We agreed to climb together, but now we must decide who claims the peak. The old fire flickered in Taro's chest. The desire to win, to prove himself, to show everyone that they were not failures. But then he looked at, still on his back. He looked at the who had climbed beside them for hours. He looked at his siblings, exhausted but alive. No, Taro said. Everyone stared at him. No, he said again. I will not fight you for a flag. I did not carry up this mountain so we could fight at the top. I did not tie myself to you so we could cut the ropes now. Then what do you suggest? They demanded. We cannot all win. Myra stepped forward. Why not? Because that is not how the gauntlet works. The rules say only one team can plant a flag, said slowly, his mind working through the problem. But what if we do not plant flags? What if we just reach the summit together? The other cadets looked at each other. This had never happened before. In the entire history of the gauntlet, no team had ever refused to claim victory. The judges will not know what to do, the leader said. We will all be disqualified. Maybe, Taro replied, or maybe we show them something new, something better. Far below in the observation room of Academy watched the screens. The cameras on the mountain showed everything. She saw her cubs standing at the edge of the summit, arguing with the other teams. She could not hear their words, but she could read their body language. Elder stood beside her, his old face unreadable. They are going to throw away their chance at victory, he said quietly. After everything, they will have nothing to show for it. Shook her head, watch. On the mountain, Taro extended his paw to the leader. What do you say? Taro asked. Do we fight each other, or do we climb the last few meters together? He looked at the paw, he looked at the summit. He looked at the cubs who had saved his rival, carried the injured, and refused to abandon anyone. Slowly, he clasped Taro's paw with his own scaled hand. Together, he said. They climbed the last meters as one. Species who had been enemies for generations, helping each other up the final rocks. When the injured could not climb, they were carried. When the tired stumbled, hands reached out to steady them. And when they reached the summit, they did not plant flags. They simply stood together, looking out at the stars, breathing the thin air of victory. Pulled out his communication device and pointed it at the sky. He knew the cameras were watching. This is team, he said, his voice clear despite his exhaustion. We have reached the summit, but we did not reach it alone, and we will not claim it alone. The mountain does not care about flags. The mountain only cares about who is strong enough to climb. We all climbed. We are all strong. He lowered the device. Below in the observation room, chaos erupted. Judges argued. Officials shouted. Nobody knew what to do. This had never happened before. There was no rule for this. Elder watched the screens. His hard face had cracked, and tears ran down his old cheeks. That is them, he whispered. That is what we were supposed to be. Said nothing. She simply watched her cubs standing on top of the mountain, surrounded by former enemies who had become friends. The gauntlet ended without an official winner. The judges debated for days before finally declaring a collective completion. No team took home the trophy. No names were carved into the champion's wall. But the footage spread across the Galactic Union. Millions watched the moment when 3 cubs refused victory so that everyone could succeed. The image of Taro carrying an injured rival up the mountain became famous. News channels called it the ascent and talked about what it meant for relations. On the day the cubs left Academy, they found waiting at the shuttle bay. She looked the same as always, small, calm, with eyes that had seen too much and still chose to hope. Instructor, Myra said, her voice thick, we never thanked you properly. Smiled, you already thanked me. Every time you got up after falling, every time you helped each other, every time you chose the harder path because it was right. Taro stepped forward. His posture had changed over the months. He no longer stood like an angry creature ready to attack. He stood like someone who knew his own strength and did not need to prove it. Will we see you again? He asked. Perhaps the galaxy is large, but paths have a way of crossing. Reached into her pocket and pulled out Commander's medal. She placed it in Myra's small paw. Keep this. Pass it on someday to someone who needs to remember what they can be. Myra's eyes widened. But this is yours, saved you. And now you will save others. That is how it works. Kindness is not a gift to be kept. It is a fire to be passed on. She turned to walk toward the shuttle, then stopped. One more thing, she said without looking back. You asked me once what I saw in you, why I chose to train the cubs everyone had given up on. She turned her head, just enough for them to see her smile. I saw kings. You just needed someone to show you how to climb. The shuttle door closed. The engines hummed and disappeared into the stars. The cubs stood watching until the ship was gone. Then they heard footsteps behind them. A group of young cadets had gathered. They were small, frightened, clearly new to the academy. One of them, a young with trembling antennae, spoke up. "Excuse me, are you from the gauntlet, the ones who climbed with everyone?" Nodded, "We are." "They say you are the best team in the academy. They say you can teach anyone to succeed." The young cadet looked at the ground. "Our species has been failing the assessments for 3 years. Everyone says we should give up, but we saw what you did on the mountain and we thought, maybe." Taro looked at his siblings. Myra was already smiling, nodded slowly. Taro knelt down so he was at the young cadet's level. He remembered another day, another room, another small creature who had been told she was worthless. "What is your name?" he asked. The cadet whispered. "Well," Taro extended his paw, "I think it is time someone taught you how to climb." The young cadets looked at each other with disbelief and hope. The cubs, once broken, once mocked, once the failures of the academy, led them toward the training halls. Somewhere in the stars felt her heart warm. She did not know why. Perhaps she did not need to. Some fires once lit never go out. And some kings are not born. They are made, one climb at a time, by those who refuse to let them fall.